You're listening to the Build Highlands Back podcast with Jonathan Raymond.
Hello, everybody. This is Jonathan Raymond, the Executive Director of Highlands Community Charter and Technical Schools and host of the Build Back Better podcast. We're here today because Twin Rivers Unified School District has issued a notice of violation and scheduled a revocation process. That doesn't mean closure, but it begins a legal and fact-finding timeline. And our community deserves clear, accurate information about what's happening and what comes next. Joining me on our set today is our outside counsel, Jerry Simmons from Young Minion Corps. Jerry's a charter law expert who has guided schools through oversight and compliance for years. In this conversation, we'll walk through how the process is supposed to work, where we believe Twin Rivers' approach is flawed, and the steps that Highlands has already taken or is taking now to correct the issues. Our goal is transparency, to answer your questions, to show our progress, and to explain the fair, reasonable standards that should be applied so students and our community aren't harmed by procedural missteps. Hello, Jerry.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. You know, this is our podcast. This is where it all happens, and really pleased to have you here today.
Absolutely. Delighted to be here with you.
So I just wanted to get right into it, want to respect your time. In plain English, what is a notice of violation, and what does it mean about closure?
So a notice of violation is just one step in a multi-step process that the law has for revocation of a charter school. The intent is to give charter schools an opportunity to cure or remedy problems that they may have with either violations of law or violations of their charter, and give them an opportunity to fix those things. So it's really just part of a longer process, right? So, after this process, there'll be a public hearing coming up. And after that, there'll be a vote by the school board to determine whether the school has met all of the requirements to cure the concerns that the district raised.
Yeah, so just to be clear for our listeners, that just issuing the notice, like Twin Rivers just did, does not mean closure.
It does not mean closure. No, it's just a step in a process, as you would outline, to provide the school another opportunity to cure problems.
Right. Okay. So some of the violations in that notice involve leases, and I wanted to ask specifically if we've acted to terminate and recoup costs of those leases. Why is it a violation? And is Twin Rivers Unified School District using a fair standard?
That's a great question. So I think they're not using a fair standard. And that's because really the test here is whether or not the school has taken steps to cure the alleged violation. And what the district has said is that they believe two particular leases were a waste of public funds. And the question is just, have we put in place a stop to that allegation or that issue? And the answer is yes. The school has, put in place a complete termination of one of those two leases.
That's the Marysville one.
The Marysville one. And with regard to the San Diego lease, which is set to expire by its own terms soon, the school has been negotiating with the landlord to try to terminate that lease early. Previously, it was trying to sublease. That didn't work out, so now the school is working to try to just terminate the lease early with agreement with the landlord, either of which would be a cure by any normal person's measure. Where I think Twin Rivers has it wrong here is they're trying to say that even if we do those cures, even if we stop using those facilities, that they're concerned about past money spent by prior administrations of the school. And obviously the one thing you can't do, Jonathan, is rewind time. And it's just an unfair standard to say, you should go back and be able to rewind time and prevent this lease from being entered into when you weren't even here at the time it was entered into.
Right. Yeah, no, Jerry, there's a lot of decisions in my life. I wish I could be a time traveler and go back and do something a little bit differently. But you're right. And I've been very straightforward about that. Some really bad decisions were made by the prior leadership team that I wish I could change, but I can't. All we can do is going forward, what we can do to either recoup those costs or mitigate the damages. And in this case, that's getting out of these leases, trying to sublet them, negotiating with the landlord, all the steps that we're taking. Right. Thanks for clarifying that.
The Build Highlands Back podcast with Jonathan Raymond.
On the grades levels and the sites where we would be operating, if the cure is a material revision to the original charter, why hasn't Twin Rivers acted and is holding that and the notice of violation hearing on the same night fair?
So there's a process outlined in the law where if you're going to change your charter, what you do is you submit a new charter document that has your revisions contained in it, right? And the school has done that, and it did that to address two issues. One is to ensure that the grade levels are what the district asked them to be, which is grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. And so the school has submitted a revision to address that issue. It has also submitted a revision to propose a new set of sites where the school will operate going forward. As you know, it had a lot of sites that it was operating at previously. Now, with the reduced enrollment in the school, we don't need all those sites to operate, and we're trying to just consolidate operations down to a smaller number of sites, all here within Sacramento County. So that's what the proposal is. Now, from here, the district has an obligation to conduct a public hearing, and then the district board has an obligation to vote to approve or deny that material revision. Now, that would cure, if they vote to approve it, it would cure two of the issues they've raised. Yes. Because they wanted us to operate grades 9 through 12. They wanted the school to address also the site locations and only be operating at the sites that are listed in the charter. So it would cure both of those two issues. The concern now is that we don't know that they're going to be voting on that prior to voting on whether to revoke or not revoke the charter. And so obviously, if they don't vote on this document that is the potential cure before the vote on revocation of the charter, the concern is that really sets up an unfair process because the school really then is being denied an opportunity to have a fair cure be heard by the district board.
So the issue is, when will they make the final decision on the material revisions? Because it was said on Tuesday night by one of the Twin Rivers staff members that the material revisions would be heard in January. And then there's some confusion because it's also been said that the hearing on material revisions will be on the same night as the hearing for the notice of violations. But the real issue is what's the order when decisions will be made? Because if the notice of violation is decided before the material revisions are decided, then we never really had a chance to cure, and that's a procedural issue that I think you're talking about, and a timing of holding those hearings and making those decisions.
That's exactly right. And, for years and years here in California, material revisions had to be decided upon, in a shorter time frame. And, one of the things the legislature did a few years back is they gave school districts a longer period of time to consider these material revisions. But what we know is that for years and years, school districts all over California were able to routinely process material revisions within 60 days, which would have the effect of ensuring that this material revision was heard prior to any sort of vote on the revocation. So there's really no reason why the district couldn't go forward and review this material revision first. So this is really a decision that the district staff and board are making to schedule this material revision so late in the process.
So they're compressing the timelines. Okay. And now I just want to also raise one more thing now. material revisions, that word material is the operative one. I mean, these are significant changes. And we know that since our team has arrived, we've got a whole new education plan, a whole new raising the standards for how we are going to be teaching and are teaching our students. We've got new career and technical education programs and student supports wrapped around in a holistic manner. All that is laid out in the material revision. So it is substantial, it is significant, and it does take time to fully review and understand, and then be able to ask questions in a public hearing, which ought to be a good exchange, and I would think a learning process for both the school district and a charter. I think it was meant to really reinforce a partnership. Is that right?
Right. I mean, it's meant to be not just a partnership, but a collaborative process, really, right? I mean, that's the goal, is that both the school and the district have an interest in improving the community and giving people educational opportunities. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for the district to ensure that a huge number of citizens are served better by the educational system. And, this is really their opportunity to learn more about what you're proposing to do better going forward, and to have buy-in to that process.
Right. So that's not a rushed or a compliance exercise. So it sounds like even scheduling all of these on the same evening, would require, it's almost a sprint to get through, which feels like a compliance exercise rather than a true collaborative building effort.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that, Jerry. What steps has Highlands already taken to cure, and what's the remaining timeline that we are looking at right now?
So Highlands has done so much to change its operations over the last year and a half. It's adopted a number of new policies governing almost every aspect of its operations. Its goal in doing that was to align the school with best practices that are implemented by school districts and charter schools across California. It has, brought in a new administrative leadership team, including yourself, as well as a new chief operating officer, a new chief academic officer. It has changed its standard operating procedures. The board of directors is in the process of a major turnover. All but 3 of the original directors have left the board, and the school is in the process of recruiting new board members, which will be seated soon.
Yes.
At which point, the remaining 3 board members have indicated their intention to step down from the board. So changes with the board, changes with leadership, changes with policy, across the board, all the things that you would expect for an organization that is responding in, a thoughtful way to the issues raised in the state audit report.
Right. Yeah, and I want to give Bill McGuire, the interim executive director, and his team credit for putting the foundation, a lot of that in place, these policies, we're now putting in place the procedures that support those policies. And, I also want to give a little shout out to our community who came out on Tuesday night. And as one of our supporters said, this is the first time that they had actually seen an elected official come speak publicly in support of Highlands, that other elected officials made phone calls, they sent in letters, community partners were there, by the dozens in order to be supportive. So I think it's all reflective of the changes that were initiated with Mr. McGuire, and certainly the ones that myself and our team have been hard at work in just the 3 months that we have been here. So the turnaround and the transformation, is complete. The one thing we haven't changed, although there's a lot fewer of them now, are our students, and they came out and they were really incredible.
It was a great turnout you had there at the district meeting of your students, for sure.
Yeah, and we had signs in multiple languages, right? So it just shows you who the community is that we serve.
The Building Highlands Back podcast with Jonathan Raymond.
Jerry, I wanted to ask, what should, in your opinion, Twin Rivers Unified School District do now to correct the process flaws and apply a reasonable standard?
Well, I think what would be amazing is if we could have a more collaborative process where it's not just trading letters back and forth, but, we sat down, went through those documents together, had an opportunity to have a back and forth exchange about, what is it that they're looking to see that would make them fully satisfied that the change is complete, and then to give us an opportunity if there was more that they thought was needed to make those tweaks. The school has put forth enormous amounts of energy and time to do everything possible to do what it thinks is satisfactory or should be satisfactory to the district. But, having a more collaborative process around this would be really helpful. And so that we're not getting all the way to the date of the hearing to find out their answer.
Right.
It shouldn't
Right.
be a surprise to anyone what the district staff is going to recommend in terms of the next steps in the process.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jerry. One of the things that was frustrating for me was the realization that a lot of the information that they were sharing was from what we had submitted on September 26th. And we have kept working with the district and providing information, providing additional evidence to cure the notice of violations. And it was November 4th. So I was at a loss to explain why hadn't they updated or provided the most recent information that they could have made or that they could have surfaced on Tuesday night, even if they had already prepared their materials. They have an expression that I think sums up really well what you just said in Argentina. It's called, it takes two to tango, right? You got to have a partner in the dance. So, we're willing to be one of those partners. We got to get Twin Rivers to really sit down with us. I appreciate that. Last question, Jerry. I appreciate your time. What are the next steps and appeal rights if Twin Rivers moves toward revocation? And what should families expect in the weeks ahead?
Well, the next step in this process is there'll be a public hearing at which they will hear from the representatives of the school as well as the public about whether, the cure has been made, what specifically the cures were, to address each and every one of the issues that they raised in their notice. Then from there, the board will make a determination whether or not to proceed, with the next step in the process, which is to revoke the school if they're unsatisfied with those cures. Now, if they make that decision to revoke rather than, letting the matter die and considering it cured, then the school has an opportunity within 30 days to appeal to the Sacramento County Board of Education. And certainly, if we get to that place, we have every intention of filing that appeal and going there. That I think people will give everything a fresh look. And they will be looking to see whether they agree with the school or with the district about whether things were cured or not. So I would anticipate a really fair hearing by the Sacramento County Board of Education if we end up getting there. So that'll just be the next steps in the process here over the next few months.
And what kind of a time frame do they have to make a decision?
Yeah, so the county is going to have 90 days within which they can make a decision on that appeal once they receive it from us.
Okay, so that takes us into April, May. And then from there, if for some reason the county supports the Twin Rivers decision, what happens next?
Well, then the school would have an ability to have one final appeal to the State Board of Education. and that would trigger similarly a process. The State Board of Education only meets every other month, so it would trigger another process for them to consider that appeal.
Okay. So I think what we're saying here is by then we're at the end of the school year. So I think the operative word for our families and our staff and our students is, look, don't panic, right? Continue to do what we do every day, show up, be in class, continue to learn, continue to grow as an educator, and know that our team, you're a fantastic team. We're doing everything we can to keep Highlands open and to fight, because our students are absolutely worth the fight.
That's right.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say, Jerry? Any final words from you?
I just think every single employee, for Highlands, they're here because they're really dedicated. I've had an opportunity to meet and work with so many of them over this last year and a half. And I would say to them, just keep doing great work with the students that you're serving. Keep supporting them every day, because the best testimony we can have at any of these upcoming public hearings is from happy, satisfied students who are getting from the school the education that they need and deserve.
Yeah, we certainly heard that on Tuesday night, and certainly invite Twin Rivers trustees to come visit our classrooms. They're public spaces, as I've said. Jerry, it's been great to have you on our show today. Thank you and your team so much for all the fantastic work you do and all your support. And, you keep us inspired and you keep us energized to continue to fight on. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. So there we have it, listeners. Another great show today on the Build Back Better podcast. We really thank our counsel, Jerry Simmons, for being here today, to providing a little clarity and to shed the light on this process that we're going through with Twin Rivers Unified School District. And I just wanted to say to our community, thank you for all of your support. Thank you for giving Highlands everything we need to continue to support our students. And like we say, it's all about second chances. And right now, Highlands itself needs that second chance. And I can assure you that with that second chance, we are building back better. It's the name of our show. Thanks for all you do. Look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, take good care.
For more information on the exciting things happening at Highlands, visit buildhighlandsback.org and follow us on social media platforms at HCCTS.